Hello and welcome to the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate podcast. Rod Kuntz on the line with me, Jim Riley. Happy to have you, Rod.
Jim, it is always a pleasure to be here, and I am excited to what it is
Yeah, well,
you're going
I'll
to
hold
throw at us for a topic today.
I'll
Come
hold the
on.
topic for a minute. By the way, we have the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate where we've got a group of people, members, and I like to ensure that they're active members, they're participants, not just members. And I'm appreciative for all of them. But I have signed up for a few other groups recently because, well, I like doing research. I like to see what other people are doing and how they're doing it. And what I've discovered, and this is a little bit of a shameless plug, our platform with Jadari is, even though it's fairly new, I mean, it's new, they just launched it. It's one of the best platforms out there. The other ones are so hard to navigate and figure out what you do and how you do it. And ours is, the way the Jadari platform is structured is pretty damn simple. So I'm happy that we're there. I'm going to be going to their, well, by the time this airs, I will have already been to their grand opening event in Utah to celebrate, them being launched and all their customers and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to thanking them in person for doing a great job.
Well, I'm excited for that also, and as you know, I'm on that platform, and being a recovering techno peasant, I find it easy to navigate, easy to figure out, easy to access, and I like the idea that when I'm posting on that, I'm not being spied on,
Or
right?
censored.
Or censored, that the content that's going on there is our content,
Mm-hmm.
and that it's safe, and it's going to remain pure,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
To me, that's very important, especially in this day and age where we're subject to so much outside influence in terms of what can and can't be said. And not that I'm afraid, but I I have an opinion, and I think my opinion can be valuable, and I don't want it to be censored and that
Well,
sort of
and,
thing. So
and privacy and all those other things. So good
absolutely.
point. And by the way, I'm going to weave this discussion into our topic for the day, and I'm going to weave it in with the story about Jadari. As I was listening to you, I thought, hey, there is a story there. I found out about Jadari from Sean Whalen. I was in his Lion's Den, which is his membership group, and they've got several thousand members. And I was in the den at a time where he was in a transition period from one platform to the next. Now, he was utilizing Facebook tools, Zoom, et cetera, and all different types of stuff. And through his frustration, he was determined to find a solution for what he was trying to do. And it was really to create this safe community. And I say safe because they own the platform, that they're not being censored, that they can do and say whatever they want. But he was intent on creating a safe platform to use as a coaching tool for his own group. And in establishing that, he realized that he could white label it and allow it to be used by other groups. Of course, he can monetize it, I should say, for other groups. And I just really think that by him trying to solve his own problems, he put together a great product for us. And when I think about that and today's subject matter, and that is, be sure to develop a plan for your own success. Develop a plan for your own success, or develop a plan for what you're trying to achieve, whether that's a one-off project for your company or whatever it is you're doing. The planning process should not be overlooked. And that's what I want to talk about today, Rod. And I was thinking about this. Why it came to mind is I just had a very successful call with a client. Well, it was a potential client before the call. And now this person will be a client upon me sending them a contract. So the ball's in my court. But the reason why I feel like that we had success on the call is that I spent the last 5 days developing a plan for the call. Okay. 5 days of planning and preparation, deliberation, discussion, Q&A with my wife, bouncing ideas to be prepared for a 1-hour call. But the 1-hour call was important to me. I wanted to make sure that I was able to deliver to this client exactly what they were looking for. as well as bring value to that person through my own ideas and suggestions, along with the ability to showcase my background and why it all ties together. So it wasn't a simple task. It was a task worthy of the 5 days, but the results of that were a successful opportunity to go under contract with them. I don't feel like, and I'd love for you to weigh in on this, Rod, by your own experience or what you've seen and heard, I don't feel like people spend enough planning their own success, whatever that looks like.
I well, I absolutely have to agree with you, because I think most people, Jim, spend most of their time worrying about things as opposed to planning things. And what keeps you up at night shouldn't be fears. It should be dreams. It should be goals, right? And I think too often, too many people spend too much time worrying and thinking about the bad things that could happen, and how do I say this if that happens, and they're going over conversations, and well, if I say that, then they'll say this, and then I'll say that, and it's like, no, you need to orchestrate, right? You need to choreograph, have an agenda, which is what you did. You had a plan, have an agenda, and choreograph your way through your day, through your through your difficult conversations, through your planned encounters with suppliers or clients or whatever that happens to be. And I think your success, having received a new client now, right, is based directly on that attitude. I can see why you'd have that success. And it's posturing. How do you posture? And I think, again, if you approach it from, I'm going to be in charge, I'm going to be on the offensive and not on the defensive, it puts you in a much better position. It sets you up for success.
Yeah.
So congratulations, by the way, on
Yeah, thanks.
your new contract.
And obviously I don't want this to be about me, but I realized the importance of it. And what was interesting in this particular exercise of building a plan out for this discussion with this client is that in building the plan, oftentimes you can find the important parts that you didn't even realize that were there, right? So going into this, I knew what the general conversation was going to be, on the call today. But as I started to build out the plan, I started honing in on what could be more important than our initial discussion. And then what happens with that, especially when you're looking at working with outside parties or others or raising capital, what happens with that is that you drill into that and bring additional value, or you bring the real value versus what you thought might have been the value. Okay.
Right.
And what was crazy is we both came to the same conclusion in our own time, in our own space. So when the call came together and we got through the meat and potatoes, we realized, hey, here's the gravy. And we're both going, I was thinking the same thing. And that's when you have the opportunity to validate that the plan makes sense and that the working relationship is a good fit.
Absolutely.
None of that would happen without having a plan to succeed. And I want to, you said a wonderful word, and I've heard it a couple times this week, and I don't think we do it enough, and that was dream. Your nights and evenings, whatever they look like, should be filled with dreams and not stress and calculations. And so let's just walk through a few steps, Rod, if you don't mind, and bring some value here. Take that dream, for example. Look, it's fresh in my mind. Let's just use my cows as an example. Okay. I've talked about this before. I used to run my lot for Spartan training. And I'd run a few, 5-6 miles out there for training. I'd run down the longest fence line. On the other side was an open pasture. And I always dreamed about buying that because I wanted to learn how to raise cattle. I envisioned and I visualized having cows down there. Now, in my story, I bought the property. In the real story, they wouldn't sell it to me. But that was my vision. My dream was to have some cows down there. So when I wrote that down, like, okay, I'm going to have cattle and the ideal scenario would be next door. You start walking through those steps. and this is the important message here is don't be afraid to dream and dream big, and then start looking at what those steps look like. Now, my first step, and maybe you can think about something that you did, Rod, that would be a great story as well. But my first step was to talk to an old rancher and tell him, hey, I want to learn how to raise cattle. You do this, you've been doing it your whole life. Where do I start? And he says, well, Jim, you start with, $700 or $800 and I'll sell you a cow. And then the most important thing is you got to find a fenced, pasture. So then my mind went right back to the pasture next door that's empty. And I thought, well, he keeps turning me down to sell it. So obviously he doesn't want to sell. So I called him and said, hey, would you lease that land to me to raise cattle? Absolutely. No problem. I mean, we're talking about a 5-minute conversation. My problem was solved. I had acquired access to that land. So then you start working through that plan. Okay, what does that look like? Well, let's go back to the cattleman and buy some cows, put it on this land. Then you start learning as you go. Okay, we need water. We got to feed these guys. We got to build a budget around that. We got to get through winter. All of a sudden, your dream starts unfolding into reality. And you look back, or what I'm doing is looking back at that now because I came full circle. We just had our first calf after 3 years of having access to that land, raising cattle. And I thought, wow, none of that would have happened if I didn't have a dream and then put a plan in place to achieve it. So that's my story. And I think you can use that model for your own dreams and plans. You got to take those first steps, even if it's calling an old cowboy and asking him how to do it.
Well, I'm glad you brought this up, Jim, because today some of the topical things that are out there, and I've been hearing a lot of this recently, and I imagine it has sources from different directions. And I'm not disagreeing with it, but I want to dress it up a little bit more with reality. And you just did it. And what was coming to mind here is the word that's used for what happened there is manifest, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm going to manifest this to happen. Well, manifest is maybe another word for seeing your dreams to fruition. Let's do it that way, because it's not magic. It's not like you're going to think about it, dream about it, and make it happen. No, you had to take action. You had to talk to somebody. You had to buy a cow. You had to go back to somebody with an alternative strategy, right? Instead of buying to lease. So did you manifest that? No, you made it happen. But the dream was the catalyst, right? And so I guess what I want to do is I want people to not get into this notion that if they just think about things and put it on their list and think about it every day, or think about it 3 times a day and tell other people that they're thinking about it, that it's somehow going to happen.
Yeah.
Because that's not how it works, right? You can manifest things, but you have to match your dream with effort. And you did a great example of that. And then I will tell you another story after this, but I'd like to get your take on that, because I know you're hearing some of the things I am.
Yeah. And I just think that manifestations, it is important, but I think people take it out of context. I think what happens when you manifest things is that manifestation comes from your plan and your dream. And while you're busy, in a good way, taking action, that manifestation happens when I cross paths with that cowboy and go, oh, hey, he's in front of me. By the way, do you know anything about cows? Can you teach me how to raise cattle? It all comes together through that. So I think you might be able to manifest, what crosses your path. But if you're not taking action on that dream with a plan, you're not going to connect those dots.
Yes. Yes, exactly right. Exactly right.
It's like that. We bought a Bronco a couple of years ago, Ford Bronco, when they came out. You don't see anywhere, then all of a sudden you buy one, you see them everywhere because now it's top of mind. And to me, that's what happens with manifestation is you bring something to the forefront of your mind, and then you start seeing it other places because it's on the forefront. And so I just take a little different approach on manifestation. Like I think it brings things top of mind, and then you have the ability to see the opportunities that lie within what might have already existed. You've just opened yourself up to it. So I don't know. What's your story? Let's hear it.
Well, first, I just want to say thanks for that, because I agree. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with manifestation. I just want to make sure people understand we have a role to play in that.
Well, you
That's
can't
more than just dreaming. That's
you
it.
can't sit on your butt and hope it comes your way, right? You better get outside in the pasture and do
Right.
something.
So my story is, and it's not my story, but it's my son's story, right? This goes back to the Great Recession, right? He was a young man, and he went off and started working in the alternative energy field, oil field, and then alternative energy, and back into oil. But he was very smart, and his wife Riley, and he worked really hard and sent all of his money home, and they invested it, and they bought a house and a piece of property, little 5 acre, well, not 5 acre. They bought a house with 1.25 acres, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my son, when he was on one of his trips home, he was standing on the balcony, and he was showing me the property and where his property lines were. And he said, Dad, my dream is to own from over there on that other corner, on the north side over there, down that fence line. I want all of that. That's my goal here. I want to get this house, get it paid for, and then I want all of this pasture land. I'm going to buy all that. And then I've got all these different things I can do. I could develop part of it. I could do this. I could have a rental on it, etc. And when he got to the point, it was so funny, because as he started thinking about wanting more land, one of his neighbors knocked on the door while he was gone and talked to his wife.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, can I pasture my horses on your property over here? And she said, well, that's not our property. And he said, no, I think it is. He said, I used to pasture my horses there with the person who had it before. Well, they bought it in foreclosure.
Mm-hmm.
And so the person had listed that property with the house in 1.25 acres, and it didn't sell, and it didn't sell because, it was a major recession.
Yeah.
And so the listing was for the house in 1.25 acres for a certain amount of money, and that's what they bought it. That's what they bought. Well, it turns out, once they went back and looked at all the title work, the person, in order to try and sweeten the deal, sold all 5 acres that he had with
Huh.
the house. So they went back through all the title work, and the realtor didn't know, the banker didn't know, but the title work, when he bought that house in 1.25 acres, he actually bought 5 acres on top of it.
Wow. Wow.
And you know what an extra 4 acres of land is
Oh,
worth in the Flathead Valley. And that was basically gifted to him, but it was
wow.
his dream. It was
Mm.
his dream, and it was somebody else's unfortunate demise, and it got past bankers and realtors and everybody else. But when they started looking at, what could they do with it, they found they owned it already. And it's just a wonderful story, because he worked so hard, and it was just the fruits of his labor.
How
That was a
awesome.
gift. Yeah,
How
a real
awesome.
gift. And now there's
Clearly,
a rental property out there on that land, and I think he actually subdivided and sold another piece too. So
clearly Zillow didn't know.
no.
I have the opposite story, by the way, with the house that we bought several years ago. Um, our first hot summer here in Montana, my wife says, "Hey, go turn on the AC." I said, "Yeah, no problem." We were getting ready to leave. She's like, "That way, when we get back, it'll be nice and cool in the house, right?" So I go over, turn on the AC, we leave, we come back 4 hours later. The house is hot as hell. Like, I thought I turned that thing on, so go back to hadn't moved. And she's like, "Well, is something wrong with the AC unit?" I said, "I don't know. Where's it at?" And she goes, "I don't know." And I go, "I don't remember seeing an AC unit anywhere at this house. Like, certainly there's nothing outside. Is this some kind of internal mechanism?" And we're down in the utility room. There's nothing down there. And she's like, "I don't think this place has AC." And I said, "I don't think it does either." Okay. Now, when we bought the house, you go through the listing and it says, central air, central heating. That's what it says, central air,
Sure.
central heating. In my mind, that central air meant air conditioning.
Right.
Well, we called the old owners because we're friends with them. Like, "Hey, what's the air conditioning like in this house?" She says, "Oh, just open up all the windows. We get a nice breeze up there." I'm like, you mean there's no air conditioning?" So unlike your son, we got less than we thought. He got more than he thought. So
Well,
look, just getting back on topic is developing your plans. I would say go out and seek the tools necessary to build the proper plan for what you're trying to do. It's also one of the reasons why I love technology is terrible sometimes when you look at how much time we spend on it and our kids and everything else. But there's some really valuable tools that you can get through technology. For example, I've talked about it here before, is being on the 75 hard program.
Right.
Now, the first time I did that, you had to remember all those things and have your own little internal checklist. Well, now they have a great app called 75 Hard, and you just open the app up on your phone and it has all the list of things that you need to do, and you click the box. And if it gets to be 11 p.m. and you haven't done it all, it pops up on your phone and says, "Hey, have you completed your task? Don't fail today." And then you're like, "Oh no, I got to go do, take my picture." Pretty hard to fail when it's reminding you of those things. But I love that there's a plan to things. You can buy plans or tools to help you develop your plan through technology, or reminders, things that will stimulate your progress in the positive direction. I think the hard part is knowing that you need to do that you need to have a plan,
Right.
that you need to have a dream, that you need to have a goal, you need to have your values. But once you've established that, you can pull it all together through technology or tools that are available out there. And by the way, that's something we do in the syndicate too, right?
Right. Absolutely. Well, something happens, and we've talked about this before, and certainly we have on our calls. Something happens when you write it down.
Mm-hmm.
It changes it from thinking about it to taking action,
Yeah.
and it makes it more intentional and more purposeful. And I think it actually helps change our perspective on what we're looking at. I can think about something, and then when I start writing it down, and how I think in bullet points, right? I think in outline format. And when I
Mm-hmm.
start outlining things shuffle around, things move. It's I don't know if I can really describe it. Maybe it's just the way my brain is wired, but it is a moving, once it's written down, it's movable. It
Yeah.
changes. It's almost like water, and I can move pieces around on it. Things are floating there, but I don't get that in my head. I can't do it just in my head. I have to make it physical to start being able to manipulate it to do what I want it to do. And that's part of the planning process, I think, is the doing.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the magic happens, is in that actual physical doing something. Pen to paper, fingers to the keyboard, however you do it, you have to make something happen.
I think, just reiterating your point, is that you have to write it down. I think the literal sense of writing it down, not on your computer, literally getting a pen and paper. There's a reason why all these leadership events I've been to, we are membership groups that I've been in, including ours.
Right?
What's one of the things we sell and give?
A journal,
A
a
journal, a
notebook.
notebook.
Yeah.
Yeah, a notebook, because the physical act of writing something down, the processing of that allows it to resonate more with your brain and solidify what you're going to do.
It reminds me, there's an old adage, and I don't know where it came from. I've heard it for most of my life, but it's, we hear something and we forget it. We see it and we remember it.
Mm-hmm.
But when we do it, we understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And doing it, in this case, would be writing it down, helps us to understand our plan even better. It helps us formulate that plan and flesh it out. So we hear, we forget, we see, we remember, we do, and we understand. We need more doing. If
More
we want
doing.
to understand things, we need to do it. We need to be hands-on.
Well, and bringing this conversation full circle back to the plan that I spent 5 days on, that I put in a presentation for the call. And by the way, it was a call. It wasn't Zoom. I did not send a presentation over that we walked through a PowerPoint or something. It was literally, I had the most beautiful notes for myself to read from. But the 5 days of effort that I put in was on, I'm looking around my desk right now, by the way, 6 or 7 different pieces of paper that I carried around with me, gathering thoughts and ideas at different times, at the dinner table, different conversations, at the bedside, when I woke up, before I went to sleep, jumped out of, oh yeah, I got one more idea out of the shower, right? So I took all these pieces of paper, and then late last night, I dropped it all into a beautiful document, branded it, knowing it was only for myself, but I wanted it to have the presence and the significance of a plan that I was prepared to present, even on a phone call. because I think how we do one thing is how we do everything.
Absolutely.
And I think that by doing that, it allowed me to categorize all the topics by what they were and how important they were, and then formulate the tempo of the call based on what we were discussing on my document. And I was also prepared and had planned enough. Whereas if the client wanted to lead the call and go in his direction, I could still bring value through what was in front of me. Now it worked out in my favor. He said, you go out and lead the call. I know you prepared something, and I was able to run it the way that I wanted to. There's just no substitute for building out the plans and your goals to get the job done. So that's my last thought on the topic today. I hope people got some nuggets out of that.
Well, I know to me, it's just more, I don't know. I like to hear things I like to hear the truth. I like to hear things that work, and I like to hear the stories of people working the truth. And these truths will work in other people's lives if they apply it. So if you're already a planner, keep doing what you're doing and know that you're doing the right thing and that it's bringing you value, even if it's slow, even if you don't see it right away. And if you're not that person, it's never too late to start, right?
Yeah.
Join the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate, and maybe that's what we'll do next month. We'll send out free journals to everybody who joins or something,
Yeah.
and a little notebook for everyone. We can do whatever we want. So,
little reminder. I want to add just one final thought on this, and this goes along with, I'm going to use the term that you brought up, manifestation, but also having a plan, because I think having a plan allows you to understand what your needs are or know what you want, so that when it's in front of you, you can say yes to that. This client that I'm referring to, I met in New Jersey last week. And although it wasn't the first time I met this individual was briefly at an event, like literally, hey, nice to meet you. I'm sitting 3 rows back. Looks like we have some things in common. We're at the rodeo. That was it. The first time I really met this individual was going to New Jersey. Now, I deliberated about going to New Jersey because I haven't flown too much by choice. Big city. I'm over the big cities from my past life. There was a lot of reasons not to go, but the biggest reason to go was to network and get back out there, focusing on my plan of expanding our business and our reach for Young Entrepreneur Syndicate. So I went, and it cost a couple $1,000s to go do that. It wasn't an easy, I've got some airline points, I just get there. It was a couple grand. And even the morning that I woke up there, I'm like, what am I doing here? I spent all this money. I better make sure that I get involved and really kind of network and get my money's worth out of this. Almost 3 full days. And after getting home 2 days later, I got a message from this person saying, hey, can we talk? And here we are 2 weeks later that we're going to solidify a deal. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is I've said this before. If you're going to be in business and be out in business. In other words, get out of your comfort zone, go shake some hands, go meet some people, go join a committee or a group, or be involved, because that's the way that you're going to succeed. It's not going to happen from your couch, drinking a Budweiser and watching whatever shows on, right? I don't think anybody drinks Budweiser anymore. But the point is you got to get out to make the deals happen and find success and bring that plan together. So for me, another thing culminated into one based on that trip and finding the real purpose behind that. By the way, this individual told me the same thing. He's like, I don't even know what I was doing out there. I was supposed to do one thing, want to be in another. It's kind of a waste of time. He said, well, we had this call that he goes, well, that was worth it. So
there you
we
go.
both spent a lot of money to meet each other in another state. We probably could have done it right here.
Half an hour away. You had to go across the country.
Yeah.
Love it. That's how it works, though.
It's how it works. You're getting out there. Look, I appreciate the time and the input on the topic. And by the way, these shows are doing really well. So I want to thank anybody that's sharing these shows. As you know, I have the Answer Is Yes podcast show itself. And then we have the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate, both podcasts on the same channel. But Rod, our shows are in the top 10 of all my shows, over 73,000 downloads on my podcast shows, and over 350 episodes. And these are hovering at the top now because they're really resonating. So if you're out there sharing it, thank you. Keep doing it. We want it to grow. We want to bring value to people.
Absolutely. And I'm going to put another plug out there too. I don't mind you giving me a topic at the last minute, Jim, but I think it'd be fun to get some more topics and this has happened before, but I would like to hear what other people would like us to talk about. You know,
Yeah.
if there's some random topic, we were talking poetry last time we were on the air. So let's, bring something to us, bring something to the table and let us really wrestle with it. I think it'd be a challenge and fun. I like a good challenge.
You can send those questions via Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all to the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate. We find them there, or you can find me as well. Jim Riley, Montana, and Rod Kuntz is Warpath Alliance. You'll find him also on Instagram, or go to our website. There's an info@ email address. We get all that stuff. So we'd love to hear from you. Again, thank you for sharing the show. We'd love to have you as a member in the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate. Right now, first month is free. Next month and on is $99. You get huge value out of that. Basically, you get 3 CEOs, access to all 3 of us to help you with whatever you're doing. And by the way, one of us, not me or Rod, is a marketing expert. And that alone, I mean, look, if you're looking to hire somebody in marketing and they're looking for thousands of dollars, you'd be crazy not to join our syndicate and just get help for $99. I'm just saying, okay, I'm just throwing it out there, a little idea.
You can spend $99 and go to our document section and get thousands of dollars worth of stuff right there.
Well, there's some legal docs right there that save you several hundred for sure. So
absolutely.
Anyways, let's leave it at that. Bringing value. Rod, good to see you. Enjoy the balance of your week.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Right on.
Thank you.